So, ladies and gentlemen, when Toronto Maple Leaf fans look at the 1989 NHL entry draft, it's of two minds. Because Matt Sundin was taken first overall and eventually ended up with the Maple Leafs in the Wyndham Clark trade. Nobody disputing that was a very good trade. But did you know that Toronto had 3 draft picks in the first round that year and took players from all the same OHL team? Now, this request comes from Michael Brown, who's a big Leaf fan, has been following our channel for a little while. He said, Governor, what do you think about them having 3 picks and taking all the same team? He said anybody else in the draft besides, of course, they couldn't get Sundin would be better. Now, there's a number of arguments here. Now, just to recap, they had the number 3 pick in the draft. He took Scott Thornton, a center with Belleville. Okay. Then he took in the 12th round Rob Pearson, a right winger with Belleville. And then the last last player in the draft was a defenseman called Steve Bancroft with the Belleville Bulls. Now, if you go on the Internet Hockey database, they break down the players and their points totals in the NHL. Now, with Scott Thornton, it's kind of confusing because he played many, many years in the NHL for a lot of different teams, put up 941 games, mostly as a role player, played until the NHL until 2008, which actually was 1 year less than Matt Sundin. Put up 285 points in 941 games. Like I said, but the production they expected on him with Toronto was never there. Now, what Michael was talking about, there was better players in the draft that you could have taken. Well, we're just going to go over this a little bit just to make sure his theory and my theory matches, because I tend to agree. They could have took Stu Barnes, which was a big player mostly with Winnipeg, Bill Guerin, who scored 430 goals in the NHL, played until 2010. Bobby Holik was out there, Czechoslovakian star. Mike Sillinger as well, good defensive forward, can play different plays. Kevin Haller was another player. Olaf Kolzig, Stephen Rice, and dealing with players in the second round, you look at Adam Foote, big defenseman, Travis Green, the very dependable Kent Manderville. You look at, Greg Johnson, middle of the second round. But when you get into the third round, you get really, really sorry for Toronto. You got players like Louis DeBrusque, Nicholas Lidstrom, Rob Zander, good defensive player, Chris Draper, again, Wes Walz, and Robert Reichel in the fourth round. And where it really got dangerous, ladies and gentlemen, they could have took Sergei Fedorov, who was taken in the fourth round, 74th overall by Detroit. Now, at the time of the draft, Fedorov and Lindstrom and all these other players were part of Detroit's planned European expansion. I don't think Toronto had the draft mentality to look at Europe as much. But I want to just look at Scott Thornton's career, and let's put this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, just of the one of the 3. When he was drafted by Toronto in 89, he only scored 62 points in the 89 season. Did that warrant a top 3 pick? He only had 28 goals. Well, who knows? They could have took him at number 20. He did nothing with the Leafs. He only scored 1 goal in 33 games before he went on to Edmonton, then Montreal, then Dallas, then San Jose, and then the LA Kings. His only 20-goal season came in 2002, where he scored 26 goals. Again, a role player, a decent guy. Played a lot of seasons with Montreal. But when you look at Scott Thornton, okay? Excuse me, Rob Pearson. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up here. Rob Pearson, when he played. When he was drafted, ladies and gentlemen, okay, he only scored 20 points that season in 26 games. And did that warrant a number 1 draft pick, 12 overall? Well, 1990 put up some really nice numbers, 88 points. Then he moved from Belleville to Oshawa, and of course, playing with Eric Lindros, put a lot of points on the table. Now with Toronto, he had a couple of decent years. He scored 23 goals in 93. Then he found himself to St. Louis and Washington. Then out in the NHL for the rest of his career in the late 90s. So not really worked, ladies and gentlemen, a number 12 overall, even though he was showing a lot of talent. But here's the kicker, ladies and gentlemen, with Mr. Bancroft. Okay? Mr. Bancroft, when he was drafted by Belleville, again, 37 points in 66 games. 3 players on the same team. Was there better players available? Sure there was. Second year with Belleville, decent numbers, 43 points in 53 games. Then the problems happened, ladies and gentlemen. He played 1 game in the 1990s with Chicago in 93. He played 5 games in the 2000s. And he went from team to team in the minor leagues. Maine, Newmarket, Indianapolis, the Moncton Hawks, Cleveland Lumberjacks, St. John Maple Leafs, Fort Wayne Comets, Detroit Vipers, Chicago Wolves, LA Ice Dogs, LA Thunder, again, St. John Flames, Providence Bruins, Houston Aeros, Corey LaRose's former team, the Hamilton Star, Cincinnati Cyclones, Kentucky Thoroughbreds, Cleveland Barons, Worcester Ice Cats, Binghamton Senators, Augustburg Panthers, and the Omaha Ak-Sar-Ben Knights. 2-decade career in minor hockey. Decent player, like I said, a good minor pro player. But was he worth a number 1 pick, 21st overall? Of course not. So this is statistics. When Mike Brown says, that was a frightening 3 picks, it wasn't like they put up a lot of points. They were probably looking for Belleville's toughness. And we all know Belleville is one of the toughest teams in the OHL, always have to be. They've gone through, different good coaches and players through the years, some off-ice tragedies as well that they've overcome. But, again, you could have got all these players. Can you imagine the lineup in Toronto in the early 1990s with Bill Guerin in the lineup? Okay, Bobby Holik, Mike Sillinger. Just for argument's sake, okay? Look at Olaf Kolzig. They had problems for quite some time with players in the mix. They could have had Olaf Kolzig as a good backup, and Stephen Rice, unlimited talent. Travis Green, Greg Johnson, very underrated center, scored a lot of goals in the NHL and a lot of games. Played. These were durable players. But to pick 3 players from the same OHL team, and, it's a head scratcher. See, that's why I'm not a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. If I had 3 number 1s, we've made some bad draft picks, don't get me wrong. We drafted Lindsay Vallis that year. And if any Montreal Canadian player can tell me, a Montreal Canadian fan can tell me how many games Lindsay Vallis played, if you said 0, you'd be wrong. You played 1 game in the NHL. Not like Jason Sewells with Edmonton that draft. Jason Herter was the only other player in that draft behind Sewells and Vallis that played 1 game in the NHL. And that was an 8 overall. Can you imagine? That was a rough draft, ladies and gentlemen, for a lot of teams. And like I said, there was some good talent. Not like the later drafts in the 2000s. But again, if you're Michael Brown, good Toronto fan, and you go to a podcast and say, Jeffrey, can you do something on this? And this is for Michael Brown and all the Maple Leaf fans who saw that draft as an opportunity maybe to scout Matt Sundin, possibly. Because when he was drafted, there was no indication he was ever going to leave Quebec. Who would have thought Wendell Clark for Matt Sundin? We couldn't even dream that back then. And then Sundin and Clark played together in Toronto later on. So that's the curious case of the 1989 number 1 draft picks for Toronto. Take it as you will. So if you like what we're doing, I'm not doing this to put down the Leafs. It's just throwing out the information. If you like what we're doing, give us a like, comment, or subscribe. We appreciate any information that you would like to pass on for requests. And again, this is for Michael Brown. I've known a lot of Michael Browns in my life. One of mine's a former teacher. So I don't know which Michael Brown it is, but if it's one of my Michael Browns that's been good to me through the years, you never go wrong with a suggestion from somebody called Michael Brown. It seems to work. Have a good day. Bye.